not just fit in terms of your resume. So it comes back to resume presentation again.
Yep.
The reason why we wanted to talk about that is that just the last few podcasts or workshops that we've been part of and listened to, there's a little bit of a shift in the market from post-COVID, and I keep referring to COVID, and it's almost 2 years ago, but it still has an impact. Probably the last, I would say we've experienced it probably the last 3, 4, 5 months.
Yeah.
In various degrees where clients are becoming really picky about candidates and who they interview and who they don't interview and who they take to shortlist. I don't want to say that prior, a year or 2 years ago, it was just willy-nilly, anybody that sent a resume got an interview, but certainly the criteria for shortlisting and interviewing candidates were less, and there's absolute reasons for that because the market was a very, very different market. That's shifting a bit now. We've got more talent coming into the market. There's a little bit more movement of talent, and clients are just becoming picky, like they should. They should be picky about who they want to see. And so now, I would say probably 90% of the position description they'd like to see before they actually say, yes, we'll interview a candidate.
Yeah. Or even more than that too. Like they're looking for that perfect candidate that ticks all of the boxes, but not only that skill set, the personality. So again, like creating that culture too. So they're looking for both of those things to be 100% before they even sort of consider anything, really.
Yeah.
And that's hard to come across in a resume, especially that culture side of things. So that's when that sort of tailoring your resume for each job comes in, because your hard skills and soft skills are going to be completely different depending on what industry, whether it's government, whether it's non-government, or whatever it could be. It's going to be different because each job requires you to do something different.
Yeah. And I think if you look at it from our perspective, and not just agency recruitment, but internal recruiters as well, ultimately the very first thing we shortlist on in terms of, okay, we need to speak to this candidate if we don't know them, is their skills.
100%. Yeah.
Match to the role that we're recruiting. And we're quite broad. Our focus is usually to rule candidates in instead of ruling candidates out of a job or an opportunity. But that's the first thing that's got to make us go, I want to speak to this candidate. Because then once we speak to the candidate, not only are we checking the skills, but we're also then assessing cultural fit because we know the client.
Yeah.
But first and foremost, it's that resume that's got to make us go, oh, I'd love to speak to you. Let's explore this a little bit further. So probably an old saying, but resumes are really important. And just recently we had a huge recruitment drive with one of our government clients.
Yeah.
And they usually don't ask for selection criteria, and now they did for these roles. I've got an interesting feeling about selection criteria. I know they're a pain in the butt. But I actually
take time.
Do take time, and they should take time.
Yeah.
But I actually think if they're done right, they add a lot of value to your resume, because the difference with a selection criteria and a non-selection criteria is if you've got a selection criteria, you can literally showcase your experience for each area that they're looking for. If there's no selection criteria needed, you've got to build that into your resume.
Yeah. And that can make your resume too big.
Yeah.
Your resume needs to be short, sharp, to the point, painting that overall picture of, yes, I can do X, Y, and Z, and have it in your skills, but then back it up in your experience as well. And that's the thing that's going to make us go, oh, they can actually do X, Y, and Z. But if you have too much fluff in there, if you're just applying for jobs or anything like that that you think you might be able to do, or you know you can actually do it, but we're not seeing that in your skill set, you're going to miss out on that job completely. And that can be demotivating, because if you are applying for the right jobs for you, but you're not getting the calls, that's why, because you're not putting the relevant skill set that is attached to you, or your resume is way too long. It's hard to read. just there's too much in it that you actually, none of those skills do stand out. They get lost.
Correct. And it's the tailoring, and that takes time.
It
But
does.
a lot of our candidates have 2 or 3 resumes
Mhm.
that are tailored towards a specific position. It could be a business analyst resume, a change management resume, and a project management resume. And you've got experience across all those 3 disciplines. It's worth having a resume that's focused on each of those disciplines, and then using that resume when you're applying to a business analyst job so that the business analyst side stands out. And so many candidates will say to us, but you can see that I've done it. And I'm like, yes, I can. I've got experience. I've been doing this for a long time. Tayla can. But you're not just applying to people that review your resume that have had years experience. You're also applying to people that just started recruitment last year. And they're recruiting, if they're an internal recruiter, they're recruiting finance, IT, operations, multiple roles. So make their job easy so that you can get to the top of the pile by showcasing what you can do and how you can do it, because the resume just needs them to pick up the phone, give you a call,
it needs to stand out, hit those keywords that they're looking for. If they're looking for, say, I don't know, like a software developer who has Java. You're a software developer, you know you can do Java, but you don't have it on your resume, you're not going to get selected.
I'd be very worried if a software developer doesn't have Java, but it might be Java within a specific industry that you've done, but you just haven't mentioned, or you've mentioned the company name and assume people know that that company is in that industry. Don't assume that. If you've worked for an organization, just put a little blurb to say who they are. And this is probably quite relevant for people coming into Australia from overseas, because we don't know the countries. I'm South African, so when there's a South African resume that hits my desk, I would be able to know, oh, this is a big company, this is a finance company, this is a mining company. But don't assume people know that.
And it does also bring your resume to that next level. Just 1 or 2 sentences. You could be like, X, Y, and Z is a healthcare company that provides this software to GPs and healthcare. Like, that's all you need. And then that way we'll be able to be like, oh, okay, so that's really similar to what our client's looking for. And again, that's another tick in your box that we're probably going to call you because you've got the same industry experience.
Correct. And that's, it sounds simple, it takes effort.
It does.
But I think once you have your resume fine-tuned and you can just change or add or replace keywords, that's really that should stand out. The other thing that's pretty important is also titles of roles, because titles of roles within government and private sector are different. So try and align that. If you're a business analyst and you were called a process or a project officer, but as a project officer, you were actually doing business analysis, change your title. Because again, when there's a word search being done for a business analyst, your resume will not come up, not necessarily. So for us, I think we've just experienced the last 4-5 weeks that there's been a little bit more of a focus from the client side to be very specific about what they're looking for. We're hearing words like, it doesn't feel right, it doesn't, those kind of things. So there's an emotive side to the recruitment that couples with the resume.
It's not just it's not just a tick and flick at the moment. It is that they're wanting to have that feeling when they're looking at your resume. And there's a certain way that you can make your resume look that you can get that feeling across to them. And although it's nothing fancy or anything like that, but I do get a feeling when you do look at someone's resume. If you look at 2 different resumes, they're exactly the same, but they're worded a little differently and they're set out a little differently. You do get sort of a better feeling of one than the other. And everybody's different, so not everybody will get that same feeling, but there is sort of a way that you can
Do it.
put that across without, you know, being there in person, being like, this is me here.
Yes,
I'm the
yes.
feeling.
Yep, I can do the job. And
Yeah.
that's part of our job as well, is
Yeah.
once we've had that conversation, is to relay why we feel that your personality, your experience, the package deal that you bring to the table would fit in with the organization, and that's why we're representing you.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's you speaking with somebody on the phone and you're just like, you will fit into this organization so beautifully, just purely because of who you are, what you're
Yep.
saying, how you're approaching things. And that's not something that you can practice. It's just who you are.
Yeah.
But the resume has to
Yeah.
talk for you.
Yeah, exactly. It needs to paint the picture, like you say, Suki. The resume paints the picture, and then you actually can go in there and then sell yourself.
Correct. Yes. And we can help with all of that.
Yeah.
And you can do it yourself as well. It's sometimes tough if you've got your own document and you keep working on your own document and you're not sure, especially if you don't get any feedback as to why you're not getting interviews. It's really difficult to understand why you're missing out. Most of the times, if we do have a candidate that says to us, I'm missing out on jobs, I know that I'm suitable, when you look at the resume, you're like, you're not even selling yourself to this position.
It's usually a simple fix, and having that third party look at it, it's you're stepping out of the car door and you're having somebody else step in for you and have a look at it.
Yeah,
so
correct.
That's also something else. Or even if you don't want to send it to sort of a professional, send it to a friend or someone, get somebody else to look at it. They may sort of see something that you might be able to change. And it could be as simple as moving your skill set up to the top rather than down to the bottom, or just something really simple like that.
Yeah. Or if you're applying for a business analyst job, don't have business analyst as your third top skill.
Yeah.
Have it as your first top skill, because people automatically read from top to bottom and assume that what you're doing best is at the top and what you do least is at the bottom. Just little things like that. So for us, I think this morning we were thinking, what do? We talk about the market in terms of numbers and where it sits and who, what Seek says, what Job Adder says, which is our CRM that we use, and they collect a lot of data. I think ultimately it's about our experience. It aligns with sort of where the market is going and what we're hearing, and certainly from our experience as well. So we wanted to relay that, and we've just had a week of doing selection criteria and helping candidates with that, and just really trying to make sure that we're hitting those points as best as we can for the client, but then ultimately for the candidate to get an interview. It's a two-way street. We can't do your selection criteria for you.
We don't know your skills. We don't know what you've done, but we can help you adjust it and provide you with the material that you need to perfect it. And that's sort of using that STAR method too, which kind of talks about the situation, the task, the action, and then the result too. So that's another really good thing to have in the back of your head. If you are going for a government job and they are asking you for this a selection criteria, use the STAR method. And if you don't know what it is, Google it. It's all over Google, but it's what we provide for interviews as well. And it just kind of gets you on track of what you need to do.
Yeah, so that you can focus when I'm giving feedback or when I'm answering a question. Have I answered a question completely in terms of what I can bring to the table and what I've done, and can I demonstrate what I've done? So it sounds simple. It takes a bit of practice. It doesn't come naturally for everybody. This is what we do. We're in recruitment, so this is what we do, bread and butter for us. A project manager does not do this. So we're here to help in that sense.
Yeah, 100%. And we can even... Oh, sorry, Gnomes.
That's okay. I was just going to say, so if people want to get your feedback, what should they do?
They can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram too, Tayla at Montague Group, and email me taylor@montague.com.au, or Suki's is the same, just with Suki.
Yep. And on our website, we did a podcast a while ago just
Yeah.
about what should be on your resume, important things that you have to tick off.
Yeah.
So there's so many resources.
Yeah.
But if you want to reach out, absolutely, those channels are all available.